Justin, if you're ready to go.
Sounds good. Hello and welcome back to the Texas Association of Builders Zoom at Noon Virtual Education. Our today is sponsored by Perma-Pier Foundation Repair of Texas. My name is Justin Bryant. I'm with Perma-Pier Foundation Repair of Texas. I'm excited to be here with you today to bring you this session. It's up to you. Looks like my screen froze. Sorry about that. It's up to us engaging in the construction industry and training and employing our future workforce. The goal of TAB's education series is to offer an opportunity for you to gain new strategies and stay on top of the latest industry as you continue to adapt to new circumstances. Perma-Pier Foundation Repair Company of Texas is a science-based foundation repair solutions company. We focus on evaluating the why foundation has moved, and we specialize in doing that for builders, homeowners, commercial and multifamily property owners alike. Our service-based company deals in evaluating the cause, providing a solution, and preserving your brand equity in a timely fashion. Today's session, we'll hear from Ed Brady, who is the CEO with the Home Builders Institute, and Ron Rohrbacher, who is the VP of Construction Training with Perry Homes. This session will focus on the shortage of skilled workers, as we were just talking about in Texas, and how the community can change the future shortage issues. The experience that these two gentlemen have collectively in home building education is truly inspiring. They're going to share with you the pieces are in place for anyone who wants to get involved in educating Texans, or anyone in the industry for that matter. TAB and its local HBAs have developed partnerships with community colleges, Texas State Technical College, just to name, and Habitat for Humanity, just to name a few, and can help you expand this network of industry partners. From HBI's curriculum materials that are available at texasbuilders.org, Ed and Ron will talk with you about the resources that are in place and how you can easily become a part of this education. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Justin. I think, am I supposed to go first, Ron? I think that's what we agreed. So I'll jump in. Justin, thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the support of this session, and the Texas Association of Builders for allowing me to come on and talk a little bit about HBI. I've been in the industry for 33 years. I was a home builder for 30 years of that, or actually 28 years of that, when I joined my father's business back in 1988 after spending a couple of years in Washington, D.C. But I became passionate about what we do as a advocacy group, not only at the local, the state, and the national level, but individual companies. And as I traveled throughout the country in 2016 as the National Association of Home Builder Chairman, I became more and more aware of the crisis that we have with our labor force, with our skilled workforce. And no surprise to you that are out in the field that are looking for that labor, that it is truly a crisis, that we're actually losing production times, and we're losing skilled workforce as we go. And Ron will go into a lot more depth than I will, but as we lose it takes four people to lose in the skilled workforce to bring in one. And so our numbers are going down as the economy and the housing is really clicking at all fronts as an essential workforce today. That is going to continue to increase. And so why I joined HBI in 2018 was, it's tough enough to be a builder, to be a contractor out there, let alone not being able to find the skilled workforce. So HBI has been around over 50 years. We started with the National Association of Home Builders as a workforce development group. And in the early 80s, we branched off to form our own 501c3, in large part because one of our main pillars of what we do is with the U.S. Department of Labor. We train in 44 states throughout the country, in in the Job Corps program. And we train at-risk youth from 16 to 24-year-olds in a residential setting. And we place 85% of those students into the industry after they graduate. They can go into apprenticeships, they can go into union or non-union apprenticeships, they can go to work for residential contractors, they can go to work for framing crews and plumbers and so forth after they get through our program. Ultimately, we begin with our curriculum, the HBI Pact curriculum, Pre-Apprenticeship Certification Training. And that is a chapter by chapter curriculum that teaches on the first 5 chapters, employability, soft skills, those types of things that need to be learned to go out into the workforce, how to show up on time, certainly safety, construction math, simple construction math, vocabulary, and those types of things. And then we get into a curriculum in a trade, whether it be carpentry or plumbing or solar panel installation. We then certify and credential those individuals so that they can go out into the workforce and understand as an employer, when I'm trying to hire somebody, that they've had a basic knowledge, they've had a basic training. And so hopefully, as an employer, I'm willing to pay that individual a higher salary or a higher wage as they get into the workforce. And as that skill continues to increase, then we can afford to pay them more. And so we start with that foundation. The 4 pillars that HBI is all about is the Job Corps programs, the at-risk youth. Then we do a number of community programs. We train in youth build programs throughout the country. We train in prisons. We train juvenile justice. We train with Habitat for Humanity. Just formed a great partnership with Habitat for Humanity of Houston, along with TAB, in order to train some of our students on hands-on job workforce training, which will obviously give them a better opportunity to be successful in the industry. So our community programs are wide-based. Our 3rd pillar would be our transitioning military and veterans. We train on 10 military bases throughout the country, in Fort Hood and where else do I train? Ron, in Texas. Fort Hood and Fort Bliss, I think, is where we train in Texas, but we're trained from anywhere to Camp Pendleton in California to Jacksonville, Florida. Home Depot Foundation fully funds that program. And in that, we also train veterans to give them an opportunity to come back on base and train with the soldiers and the Marines that are still in the program, or are still in the active service. And then finally, the 4th pillar, which I think is incredibly important to the industry, is that we re-engage skilled workforce in the secondary schools. And I'd say as low as the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but certainly in the secondary schools, we are only going to make up the gap in a skilled workforce if we get it back into the mainstream. My generation, you can tell by my haircut, used to be called shop class. But in career technical education, to be able to bring our curriculum into those secondary schools, introduce young people into the industry, and ultimately try and recruit them while they're going through that secondary education into the industry. Not everybody is made out for 4-year college or 2-year universities, although we partner with Houston Community College and others throughout Texas and throughout the country in order to do training. But not everybody's cut out for that. And so the hopes is that we can get a number of individuals that decide to go into the workforce right out of high school into the industry with a skill that they've gained during their 4 years in high school. And then obviously our industry is very hands-on. We create a hands-on approach. Pre-COVID, we were 25% classroom and 75% hands-on. We've had to adjust. But we strongly at HBI, and I think within the industries, strongly still believe that the practical, repetitive cutting and nailing and measuring is going to make us a more successful skilled labor, a skilled workforce. And so what we have done with Ron and with Lorraine and TAB and Habitat and others throughout Texas and throughout the country is partnered to bring those opportunities into communities. My ask here today, after Ron has done given a more thorough update to how do you get involved, is to get involved and advocate at your local level, to introduce us to those opportunities to bring this type of training into your community so that you can populate and help generate that next generation of workforce. And I'll close with this. We've had some really challenging times in the last 12 months. March 15th of last year, almost a year to date, the day the world shut down. We had over 200 in-person programs in the works. Every one of those programs shut down, closed up. And so we were able to pivot through our learning management system, through technology, innovation, to be able to continue to bring a training opportunity for those young people and those adult learners that now were displaced. As you remember, NHB, TAB, your local fought very, very hard to keep us as an essential workforce. And we were able to keep that throughout the country. And so a lot of our folks never quit working. And in fact, we recovered the ones that did lose their jobs because of the short shutdown in the industry, have regained more than we lost from a year ago or 11 months ago now. But through technology, we'll continue to be able to deliver these resources through virtual reality, through simulation, through augmentation, working with different industry to try and help create an efficient way to deliver this curriculum into the schools or into an adult learning program, ultimately getting them into the job site, working with the tools and making sure that they have reached that skill achieved to be a credible employee for you and your subcontractors or your company. And so HBI is here to help you do that as we continue to go through the crisis, understanding that lumber materials is probably the #1 issue today to builders, but labor continues to be at the top of that to create the opportunity to produce in the country and to produce at an affordable price. So it's great to be here. Ron is going to touch, I know, on a lot of different avenues, but I look forward to questions at the end of the opportunity, and we'll put up some data to connect us at the end of the seminar as well. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate y'all being here today. Thanks for coming. I'd like to thank Sloan. She's over here dialing me in right now. If it wasn't for her, you'd be looking at a blank screen right now and probably wouldn't be hearing anything. So I appreciate that a lot. My background is education. Years ago, I spent 13 years in high schools and community colleges. I was a football coach, and I also taught drafting and architecture, wood shop, if you will. So I kind of know the curriculum aspect of it. And when TAB asked me to get involved with the workforce development, I drew the short straw because I'm an ex-teacher. So I got involved with it, and I'm kind of glad I did. Let me see if we can get things started here for you. We good there, Sloan? Okay. Whoop. Nope, I'm gonna go back. There we go. Now we're good.
Yeah, just hit this arrow when you want to advance the slide.
Okay. As you look here, you can see that we do have a current shortage of labor, and it's only going to get worse. And ultimately, it does. And if you look at this slide here, it boils down to housing affordability. It doesn't matter whether you're a small builder. As the labor shortage starts to shrinken and get worse, it tightens up. Smaller builders are going to find it difficult to get the trades because most of the larger companies they'll employ them. You know, they'll dangle the golden carrot and away you go. You're not going to have anybody. And with the larger builders, it's going to be hard for them too, because as the trade base shrinks and we don't get the labor, then your build times are going to go up, and you're going to suffer. And what it will amount to is housing affordability. As you look here, you can see this is from 2019, and you can see that labor shortage right now is starting to affect us in various ways and fashions. Guys, the best thing that I can say is, and most of you are familiar with hurricanes, let's just put into perspective of a hurricane. We've got a labor hurricane, basically a shortage that's coming at us. And you all know that before a hurricane gets to you, you got bands, wind bands that come and hit you and batter you back and forth before the hurricane gets there. That's what you're going to start to feel. And we'll back that up with some slides here in just a minute. Build times are going to go up. You're going to have shortages in material. Your costs are going to go up because those trades that are there will demand more because there is a scarce shortage. And so consequently, as these bans come in and they're going to start hitting, it's going to get worse. Now, we do have the ability to not make this a category 5. We can make this a category 1 and 2 if we get on these programs and start to entice students into our industry. So as you look, and you look here, daily builders overhead costs about $450 a day. And every day that, or every time we raise the price of a home $1,000, 24,000 Texas can no longer afford that. That comes from Jim Gaines out of Texas A&M's real estate school. So if you look in the very bottom left-hand corner there, you're going to see over the last 5 or 6 years, my company has built about 10,000 homes. And that's across the market. I mean, we've got 45-foot lot sections. We got 60-foot, 70-foot. We've got townhouses. But if you look there, you can see that in 2005, we were roughly 124 days, and 19 we're at 147. So you're looking at 22 extra days that it's taking, and it's going to only get worse. And if you take those 22 days and you multiply that by the 450, you're going to come up with about 10 grand. And so you take the $1,000 price, multiply by 10, you're looking at 250,000 Texans now can no longer afford that house simply because your build times are going up. So I pulled up a lot of statistics from various places, and you can read these, but the one that really scares me the most is the one on the bottom. And if you look, our workers are not very old. Less than 10%, 9.4% are younger than 25. So we have shrunk the workforce down, and we're not putting anybody into that pipeline to spit out the other end so that we've got some qualified people and some skilled labor. This is another alarming slide here. If you look, the average age of your electrician, your plumber, and your HVAC, those fellows are in their mid-50s. I was naive. I thought, well, shoot, those guys would be taken care of. They were cranking out guys all the time, but they're not. It's very difficult to get labor into those areas because we've not cultivated that relationship with trade schools. This is probably the scariest one of them all. That by 2031, 41% of the current construction labor in the United States will have retired. So that means we're at 2021 right now, and the train's on the track and it's left the station. You got 10 years to straighten this out and fix it. And that's what I mean. These bans, like if you refer to it as a hurricane, they're going to start hitting you if they haven't already, and it's going to gradually get worse to 2031 when you're losing 40% of your construction labor. So we've got to fill this pipeline. We've got to get this back and start the flow, and we've got to be careful. I mean, there's immigration, there's all sorts of things. We don't want somebody to squeeze the pipeline off. So the best thing to do is to open up the trade schools, community colleges, and high schools, and start to cultivate and get our own farm club, basically, people that we can choose and pick from. So we're going to just call this the Texas CTE, Careers in Technical Education 2-step. And the first step of this, and that's one that we've been working on for the last couple of years, is to get the curriculums in the high schools and the community colleges. Since we started, at least in the Houston area here, we've got Houston Community College, HCC, it's one of the largest in the state. Lone Star College is at it. So there's a lot of players that are picking up the slack and saying, yes, we'll start to train your folks. So we are getting some support there. The next step, which is very, very important, is to get these graduates hired. Once they get certified in the HBI program, we got to get them jobs. If not, it's going to die on the vine. Since Ed talked earlier, it's the HBI program. It is a curriculum, and you get a certificate, and that certificate can be used all over the country. So if you did want to move to California or Nevada or whatever, that certificate would transfer. They partner with community colleges, and they're trying to partner with high schools. It's a little bit more difficult in Houston or in the Texas area, and I'll talk to you about what those hurdles are. But they do have a train the trainer program, so that if a community college elects to use the HBI curriculum, somebody will help train their staff so that they can train the students. We've got a really nice relationship with Habitat. There's a lady in Houston named Allison Hay, and she's very instrumental, and Ed got on board, and Habitat in the Houston area is using the HBI program as a curriculum. And what's very, very nice about this is that if there's a student that is in one of the community colleges that uses the HBI program, then those students during the day, instead of working in a classroom setting in the corner of a lab somewhere, building a corner of a wall and putting a toilet and doing a little sheetrock, those students can go to the Habitat program. They're getting the same instruction. And in the Houston area, they've got grants there where they're making about $10 an hour, and they can work in the afternoons. The key here is that the HBI program promotes repetition. There's a lot of programs out there which we'll talk about, and I refer to it as, you know, if you're a Boy Scout and you learn to tie a knot, you get your merit badge in knot tying. You tied one knot. But when you're in construction, cutting one rafter doesn't make you a framer. And some programs are geared more toward getting them through, getting them out without the repetitions. It's more theory. The HBI program is repetition and urges you to have a lot of reps. So working with Habitat and actually building homes gives these students the ability to realize that they work in, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's rainy, not the best situation. So it's real life situations, and they get to help build Habitat homes. We also recently, Ed was instrumental, and TAB, to form an agreement, and Ed can talk about this. If any other home building association in Texas wants to have this type of agreement like we have in Houston, it can be done at a reduced rate. Here kind of a sticking point for us in Texas. We have the TEA, Texas Education Agency, and they pretty much dictate the curriculums that are in our high schools. And if you look there on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the curriculums that are there. There is a company, Pearson Publishing, they create most of the textbooks. They're a huge textbook publishing company. And in Texas, they do a lot of business here. And they have a program which is NCCER, National Center for Construction Education and Research. So it's their curriculum. And this is the one that can be good depending on who uses it, but to me, it leans more toward merit badges and doesn't create the repetitions that the HBI program does. And I've talked with Scott, talked with TAB, and we're trying to get the HBI program recognized in the state of Texas as an alternative to this NCCER Pearson Publishing type of curriculum. So we want to employ as many people to be a part of this as we can. And it all starts out locally. All of you EOs from home building associations and local folks, we're not going to solve this with somebody in Washington, D.C. We're not going to solve this in somebody in California. This crisis basically that we have in labor is going to be solved locally, local people talking to the local students and getting them employed by local trades. That's what we have to have. I'm not interested in somebody in Lubbock because that doesn't do me any good, but I'm all really interested in people in the areas that we build in. So TAB has really helped us a lot. They have, we've created, thanks to Lorraine Uri in TAB, we've created a workforce development page. A lot of the information that we've come up with is on this workforce development page. So cue in, download some of that stuff and see what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We have a map of the high schools in Texas so that if you wanted to communicate with a high school in Texas, you could find out locally which ones have CTE programs that could help bolster our cause. We have an introduction letter there so that a home building association can introduce themselves. It's a form letter. You fill it out to that school district and then start to create some dialogue with that school district. A few years ago, we put together a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is a program, a PowerPoint presentation that goes from start to finish. You'll see some slides here in just a minute. Now, very few slides, because I'm not going to bore you. This is the PowerPoint presentation lasts about 45 minutes. But what it does is it takes a house from start to finish. It pretty much shows all of the trades and vendors that are responsible to build a house, and then also approximately what they would make. So this PowerPoint presentation was given to all of the executive officers. I had memory sticks made and given to all of them probably 18 months ago. If you wanted to get it from there, you can make a copy. If you wanted to just get it from the TAB website, you can get it there. And I'll tell you what to do with this PowerPoint here in just a minute. Also, TAB is creating a clearinghouse for all the good things that we're doing in Texas. You know, Todd Edison and down in Fredericksburg is doing a great job. San Antonio does a really nice job. Merrick has put in some really nice, over the few years, nice job fairs. They had 1,000 students there to try to employ those kids. So there are a lot of things going on in different parts of the state that we want to put into a clearinghouse where you can kind of peruse that and see maybe something might fit in your area. Guys, we have to get people in the schools. We have to get in front of the students. And Ed talked about the junior highs and the high schools. We have to talk to those students. And if you look at this slide here, the military recruiters have been doing this for years. They go in and have done an outstanding job. We have not as builders. So what we're urging is that the EOs can designate a builder in their area as we're just going to call it a builder advocate. And that is the person that doesn't mind spending a couple hours in a high school or a junior high, or even a community college for that matter, and talking about our industry. That PowerPoint that I said earlier that is available, that's 45 minutes. So if you're a builder and it's a little sketchy trying to get in front of 60 high school kids and you're a little bit nervous about that, all you have to do is to make contact with the CTE teacher. The Home Building Association can actually contact that building or that school district, make the arrangements, and you can go there with your PowerPoint in hand, start to finish through the stages of construction. It's 45 minutes and most of those classes are an hour. So for 45 minutes, it's all canned for you. And then the last 15 minutes, you can just answer questions. And then what you do as you leave that school is to make contact with that CTE teacher and say, hey, look, you know, as these kids get through these, if there's anything I can do for you, if you want me to come back, would you like an electrician or somebody that we have that works for us in our industry to come out and talk? We will do that. So we want to get the information from that school curriculum counselor or from that CTE teacher and to build a relationship there. The construction sequence, a home from start to finish, is what we're going to show. Just a few snippets of it. It also shows the earning potential of those specific trades, and it shows how many trades we actually need in the coming years. So this is one of the first slides. And this is what we talk about from lot prep, foundation, all the way through to the final stage. The first couple slides that I show, and it's very, very important that if you do go to a high school or a junior high, talk about these things. Tell them what the minimum wage is. This is a slide that's there. Minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. So you're not going to make much a week. Then we broke it down to months. And so at the end of the year, you make under $14,000. And these are the types of things that you want to, it's a precursor to showing the presentation, or it's part of the presentation, because as we start to ramp this up, they will see what these trades make. And it's a heck of a lot more than $13,000. And the other thing to ask these students is, you know, if you live in an apartment someplace, what's it cost? It's $1,000 a month. So that's 12 grand. You got $1,920 to eat ramen noodles the rest of the year. So these are the types of things that you need to explain to the students. One of the things that we show is lot preparation, and excavators can be paid as much as $1,000 to clear that lot. How many can they do in a day? Maybe 2. As you look here in the foundation stage, you got a form setter. This is what they do: the underground plumbing, the vapor barriers, that types of stuff. They can make $5,000 a house. Now, it could fluctuate depending on where you're at, but you're just trying to get these kids to see that there is a great living that can be had in our industry. Masonry. By 2026, we need 290,000. So we're going to need about 40,000 more there. They average about $45,000. And this is not overtime or anything like that, but it's a far cry from the 13,000 that we saw at the earlier slide. Carpenters, plumbers, 57,000. HVAC, just under 50,000. So these are the types of things. And if you look to the left, you'll see that we need many, many more over the coming years. There's your electrician. I think this slide says it all. It's one of my favorite slides. And if you look here, for decades, you know, this slide's not exactly what I wanted. It's not coming up what we want, but for decades, our society has pretty much limited the people going into trade school saying, well, we've got to go and we've got to go into college. And that's not the case. But some things you have to understand is there's an awful lot of kids that could never afford college anyways. It's not like, ooh, we either go to college or we don't. There are students, and I worked with them in a Lee High School in Baytown, where 60% of those kids' parents never went to college, and those kids would never see any college. So those are the types of students that we got to get. It's either working in the food service industry and making minimum wage, or you work in our industry and make quite a bit more. But as you look here, Adam went to college. I'm sure you've all read this now. He's got a degree in philosophy, owes a lot of money, and he's not got a job. And Chris there's probably the guy that's going to disconnect his electricity. So there is a lot to be said for a career in technical education. Unfortunately, that was the easy part. When I first started into this, I thought, well, you know, all we have to do is get the curriculums into the high schools and community colleges, and away we go. But that's not the case. That was very easy. The community colleges were very receptive. They even have night classes for these types of students. High school is a little bit more difficult to get in, but you know, Todd Edison down there in Fredericksburg, those guys are doing the tiny home houses. So they're building a nice relationship, and they're getting these students trained. That's great. But if we don't get jobs for these students, then it's no different than having a degree in philosophy. We have to get them partnered up with the people that are going to hire them. So we've got this Texas two-step here. This is crucial. It's all about the connecting. Most of your trades, they don't have even a sign on their trucks. They sure don't have websites or anything else, or a storefront. So when a student graduates with an HBI certificate, how does he link up with that trade? Is he going to go to a job site and walk around and knock on truck windows to ask if they're hiring? It's just not going to happen. And so consequently, we have to do something about that. How do we get those two connected? The people that want a job and the people that have jobs. As you look here, it starts out in the red. The locals up there, they start the conversation with the school districts. The home building associations then get builder advocates that can actually go to these schools and present the PowerPoint presentation. We get the names and numbers from those kids. It can go to the HBAs. HBAs can have job boards. HBAs can have job fairs. And if we can get those kids connected, that's the way it has to be. Job fairs seem to be very good. And I know San Antonio has done an outstanding job. They've had a job fair there where they rent the convention center out, and they had 1,000 kids there a couple of years ago. With COVID, it's a different story. But those kids would go into the parking lots and see all the trades, whether it be a concrete company or a sheetrock company or something like that, and they could interface with these folks. These kids they were coming out of high schools with a certificate. It's easy for them to be hired. So we have to start that stuff. Now, obviously, if you're a small home building association, you just have a remodeler show. Make that part of the remodeler show. You've already rented the venue. You've already got the people coming. You bring kids in there. You bring their parents in there. I mean, it's a win-win. They have a little competition there in San Antonio, and the kids are heroes. The best little house. They build up a little corner of a house and they put a little wire in it. They wire a light and they put in plumbing, and they're all graded on that. They all do the same thing, and they get prizes for that. A lot of the manufacturers of building materials, they give those kids boom boxes and tools and everything else. So there's a lot of opportunity, and a lot of people want to help. They just don't know how. The Building Talent Foundation, as you look up here, you'll see this. This is started from Leading Builders of America, and they have they have advocates that are actually in the Texas area. And if you look there, we've got Eric that's in the Dallas area up there, and Manuel, who does Houston and the Austin area. These folks are in position to make arrangements and have cut deals with trades and vendors and contractors to try to get the students employed. So there are boots on the ground, and we've got this slide up there, and of course you could always download it, or you could download this presentation later and view it. But these folks are in position to help match up the students with the people that are going to hire them. This is a thing that I was originally raised in a farm in Indiana. And what I wanted to show you here, it's pretty alarming. If you look at 1950, there's 5.6 million farms. 2009, there were 2.2 million farms. And in Indiana, if you want to be a farmer as a kid, you just don't wake up someday and say, gee, I want to be a farmer, because if your parents haven't farmed, you don't have acreage, you don't have the equipment, you're not going to be a farmer. So over 50 years here, almost 60 years, they've lost half the farms in the United States. As you look here, this came from TRCC. It's a little bit old information, but as you look there, the top 10% of the builders in Texas captured 92% of the market. So almost 8% is the remaining 90% of the builders. Texas has an awful lot of small builders. TAB is an association of small builders. Most of your associations, your locals, are small builders. So as we start to feel the crunch with trades, they're going to peel off. They're going to go to the larger builders who can afford them, and smaller builders are going to be out of luck. So we don't want that to happen. Remember what I said, it took 60 years to half the number of farms in the United States. From 2007 to 2012, the number of builders declined 50%. So it's starting to shrink up already, and it's only going to get worse if we can't find the trades. And as you look here, you can see that the larger builders are starting to do more and more volume all the time. So what can we do? What can you do? Well, those of you that are on here, I don't know what your job is or your vocation, but if you have the ability to get in front of a school and to take that PowerPoint that we put on there and promote our industry, do it. If you can get involved with the Texas Builders Foundation, they provide scholarships. Now, one of the things that I have to say, Steve Sorrells does an outstanding job with this. Tommy Ford's another one. But we did realize that we can give 3 students $3,000 scholarships, and that's $10,000. Or now we're starting to look and say, more bang for our buck, how can we get an HBI program in a community college for about the same amount of money, and you can run as many students there as you want to. Just run them, you know, if you wanted 200 students through there in a year, you could do that. So we're all starting to look at different ways. How can we attack this differently and make the most out of it that we can? Don't be afraid to talk to those junior high kids or those high school kids. I mean, they're great. Junior high kids, at first I thought, well, shoot, you know, they're a long ways from being in our industry. But their minds are easily molded. We can get in there and start to mold them. When you get into high schools, a lot of the high school kids, their minds are just moldy, period. And I don't know how much good you're going to do. So they're a little bit more difficult to talk to. But the younger kids are very, very receptive to that. And then the last thing that we want to do is, if you are a builder and you have trades, get those trades in front of these students that are graduating, whether it be Lone Star College, HCC, Mattress Mac has a great deal in Houston, Work Texas. I've gone there. I brought my electricians. I brought plumbers in there, and it makes a big impact. A real quick story is there were a lot of welders that were in this class that they were all going to graduate. Some of them were welders, some of them were going to be electricians, some were just going to be in construction. And I brought in the plumber, and Meryl Crawford owns Charlie's Plumbing, and she started talking about it. And the women there really picked up, because it was, wow, some ladies running this plumbing company. And when she got to the point where she said that they start out at $36 an hour, a lot of the welding helmets kept flying off, and these guys couldn't wait to get her card to see if they might be a plumber. So there's a lot of folks there, misinformation about what we do. It's a very good industry, and you know, we've got framers that probably high school degree that are in $400,000 houses because they can earn an outstanding living. And the next phase, once we get these kids through there, the next phase, which we can't let not happen, is we need to get those kids involved with being entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses. So many times they're just afraid, they don't know about taxes, this, that, and this other. But the only way to increase the number of trades that we have and the number of crews that we have is for those that want to, let's educate them on how they can develop it into a business and have 2 or 3 of their own crews. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ed. Do you have anything else to say?
Well, I'll just say, Ron, I mean, you articulated it so well as to the shortage, the crisis, the opportunities that exist out there. And you also said that we're only going to help ourselves. So nobody else is going to do it for us. And so I guess my message, and I didn't hit on it earlier, but is to look for opportunities. HBI has grant money through the National Housing Endowment. The Texas TAB and their foundation has assisted in getting some of these some curriculum into areas. Ultimately, Ron was right. We have to get the Pact curriculum approved at the state level. Scott and Lorraine and council in Texas is working with us to try and get us, as some of you know, it's a political process, to get us on that, what we call magic list, so that we can go into schools with our curriculum, and the schools then can be reimbursed by the Texas Department of Education and or through federal funding. And until we're on that list, it is a little bit more of a challenge, but we are in Lubbock, in a high school in Lubbock. The local schools can use the curriculum, and there are great curriculums. And in fact, there are people in Texas and throughout the country that are doing it without curriculum, that is teaching and training. And being at the association state meeting last year, pre-COVID, I recognized and met a number of people that are doing some great things. HBA is not to get in the way. HBI is not to get in the way. It's to be able to supplement what we think is what we know is an industry recognized credential to help these students, whether they're high school graduates, Are there adult learners looking for an upskill or a career to help them introduce them to the industry so that they know that they've got this minimum or this introductory or to an advanced level of education. So there is grant money out there to get our curriculum into your schools or into your area. So as I think Lorraine, or they put up the contact for Tracy McMaster. We have an application deadline at the end of the month for those grant funds through Home Depot Foundation, National Housing Endowment, so that we can get these curriculums into the curriculum into your schools. So as Ron said, great job, Ron. We just open it up for any questions. I saw a few chats. Hopefully we'll get that information to you as we go. I think Linda brought up the idea of building inspectors. You know, what Ron showed is that, we might need 40,000 or 40,000 new plumbers in 15 years. That doesn't account for the ones we're going to lose. And so the average plumber in this country is 58 years old. You know the situation when you don't have a good plumber in a bad situation. And so we have to make sure that we educate these plumbers because we're going to run out of that skilled labor. So we'll put that information up, but it's across the board from plumbers to building inspectors, and it all filters up. We're struggling to find really good instructors. Ron, being in education his whole life, instructor's imperative to train the student or educate that student in a positive way. And so we're having the same trouble finding those quality instructors. So we're looking for instructors all the time. We're looking for the next builder. We're looking for the next inspector. And so we just have to flood the market, flood our industry with some form of professional certifications and credentials to continue to do what we do best and provide America with the housing that we need. So I think we'll open it up at this point, Ron. If anybody has any questions or we can answer any questions, that'd be great.
We have one question of if we can get a copy of the slideshow. So we will be sharing that. The other part is this presentation will be posted on TAB's YouTube channel as well to be viewed afterwards.
I'm always encouraged. I saw 52 participants at the beginning, Ron, and you only lost one, and I think I just lost one at the end there. So we kept at least the attention, but
well, you mentioned that they need building officials, and as the last slide on that PowerPoint presentation talks about building officials and building inspectors. So I begrudgingly put that in. It is in there. So you have to understand that the slides that you saw, those 5 or 6 slides with the popped up what they make, that's just a very small portion. That's about 45 or 50 slides, that presentation. So I urge you to go on the TAB website on the workforce development page and take a look at it. And I also, the work that San Antonio's done with Merrick and their job fair is just unbelievable. So there are some really good things on there. Tap into that and see what you can come up with.
And the other thing, I know Justin's going to take over here in a second. Ron said it's imperative that if we can train as many people or educate as many kids or young adults or adults into this industry, but if we as an industry don't hire them, they're not going to become the next builder or the next entrepreneur. And so Justin, at the beginning, when we were talking before we came in, how can our company help? Connect with the training facilities, the training organizations, connect with the people that are doing the training in your local area. Leading builders have some recruiters and have some people that can help connect the people that are trained to the employers that need good employees. But if we don't employ them in an industry at a good wage, which the market will dictate what that wage is, so that hopefully as an industry we're bringing the best and the brightest into the industry, then we won't be successful. So our theory at HBI, and we run, as I said earlier, 200 programs. I hired the instructors, we run the programs. So it's imperative to our programs and our instructors that we connect with industry. We connect with the local home builders association. We connect with employers in that area so that they have a bench for people that they can hire in order to provide the product that they provide. So that ultimately is a responsibility of the industry to go out and find those trained employees and bring them into the industry.
What are we doing, Sloan?
So if we don't have any other questions, then we just want to thank Herman Pier for their sponsorship and bringing this presentation to us today. We could not make this possible without them. And thank you to both Ron and Ed for your experience and enlightening information to share with us. I think this is a very pertinent topic and lots of information and direction for people. If anybody has more questions, feel free to reach out to us at TAB as well. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
See you.
Take care. Take care, Ron. Thanks, Justin.